including the Russian Far East. The population of Siberia numbers just above 40 million people. As a result of the 17th to 19th century Russian conquest of Siberia and the subsequent population movements during the Soviet era, the demographics of Siberia today is dominated by native speakers of Russian. There remain a considerable number of indigenous groups, between them accounting for below 10% of total Siberian population. History. In Kamchatka, the Itelmen's uprisings against Russian rule in 1706, 1731, and 1741 were crushed. During the first uprising, the Itelmen were armed with only stone weapons, but in later uprisings they used gunpowder weapons. The Russian Cossacks faced tougher resistance from the Koryaks, who revolted with bows and guns from 1745 to 1756. And were even forced to give up in their attempts to wipe out the Chukchi in 1729, 1730-1, and 1744-7. After the Russian defeat in 1729 at Chukchi Hands, the Russian commander Major Pavlotsky was responsible for the Russian war against the Chukchi and the mass slaughters and enslavement of Chukchi women and children in 1730-31. But his cruelty only made the Chukchis fight more fiercely. A genocide of the Chukchis and Koraks was ordered by Empress Elizabeth in 1742 to totally expel them from the native lands and erase the culture through war. The command was that the natives be totally extirpated, with Pavlotsky leading again in this war from 1744 to 47, in which he led to the Cossacks, with the help of Almighty God and to the good fortune of Her Imperial Highness, to slaughter the Chukchi men and enslave the women and children as booty. However, the Chukchi ended this campaign and forced them to give up by killing Pavlotsky and decapitating him. The Russians were also launching wars and slaughters against the Koraks in 1744 and 1753-4. After the Russians tried to force the natives to convert to Christianity, the different native peoples like the Koraks, Chukchis, Itelmens, and Yukaghirs all united to drive the Russians out of the land in the 1740s, culminating in the assault on Nizhny Kamchatka fort in 1746. Kamchatka today is European in demographics and culture, with only 2.5% of it being native, around 10,000 from a previous number of 150,000, due to the mass slaughters by the Cossacks after its annexation in 1697 of the Itelmen and Koryaks throughout the first decades of Russian rule. The genocide by the Russian Cossacks devastated the native peoples of Kamchatka and exterminated much of the population. In addition to committing genocide, the Cossacks also devastated the wildlife by slaughtering massive amounts of animals for fur. 90% of the Kamchatals and half of the Vogels were killed from the 18th to 19th centuries, and the rapid genocide of the indigenous population led to entire ethnic groups being entirely wiped out, with around 12 exterminated groups which could be named by Nikolai Idranzevas of 1882. Much of the slaughter was brought on by the fur trade. In the 17th century, indigenous peoples of the Amur region were attacked by Russians who came to be known as Redbeards. The Russian Cossacks were named Luocha, Rakshasa, after demons found in Buddhist mythology, by the Amur natives because of the cruelty towards the Amur tribes people, who were subjects of the Qing dynasty during the Sino-Russian border conflicts. The Aleutians were subjected to genocide and slavery by the Russians for the first 20 years of Russian rule, with the Aleutian women and children captured by the Russians and Aleutian men slaughtered. The regionalist oblastniki in the 19th century among the Russians in Siberia acknowledged that the natives were subjected to immense genocidal cruelty. cruelty by the Russian colonization, and claimed that they would rectify the situation with the proposed regionalist policies. The Russians used slaughter, alcoholism and disease to bring the natives under the control, who were soon left in misery, and much of the evidence of their extermination has itself been destroyed by the Russians, with only a few artifacts documenting their presence remaining in Russian museums and collections. In 1918 to 1921 there was a violent revolutionary upheaval in Siberia. Russian Cossacks under Captain Grigory Semyonov established themselves as warlords by crushing the indigenous peoples who resisted colonization. The Russian colonization of Siberia and conquest of its indigenous peoples has been compared to European colonization in the United States and its natives, with similar negative impacts on the natives and the appropriation of the land. The Slavic Russians outnumber all of the native peoples in Siberia and its cities except in the Republic of Tuva, with the Slavic Russians making up the majority in the Buryat Republic, Sakha Republic, and Altai Republics, outnumbering the Buryat, Sakha, and Altai natives. The Buryat make up only 25% of their own republic, and the Sakha and Altai each are only 1/3, and the Chachi, Evenk, Khanty, Mansi, and Nenes are outnumbered by non-natives by 90% of the population. The natives were targeted by the Tsars and Soviets' policies to change the way of life, and ethnic Russians were given the natives' reindeer herds and wild game, which were confiscated by the Tsars and Soviets. The reindeer herds have been mismanaged to the point of extinction. Overview. Classifying the diverse population by language. It includes speakers of the following language families: Uralic, Permic, Samoyedic, Ugric, Yukaghir, Turkic, Yakuts, Dolgans, Tuvans, Tofik, Kharkis, Shors, Siberian Tatars, Chulims, Altai, Mongolic, Tungusic, Yeniseian, Ket, Chukotko, Kamchatkan, Nik, Eskimo, Alush. Simplified. The indigenous peoples of Siberia listed above can be put into 4 groups: Uralic, Altaic, Yeniseian branch of the Dendo-Yeniseian languages. Paleo-Siberian. Altaic has not been proven to be a language family, a phylogenetic unit. It may be a Sprachbund. Paleo-Siberian is simply a geographic term of convenience. Here, these 2 terms are listed just to serve as portal-like starting points, without suggesting genetic considerations. Uralic group. Khanty and Mansi. The Khanty and Mansi live in Khanty-Mansi Autonomous Okrug, a region historically known as Ugra in Russia southeast of Komi. By 2013, oil and gas companies had already devastated much of the Khanty tribes' lands. In 2014, the Khanty-Mansi regional parliament continued to weaken legislation that had previously protected Khanty and Mansi communities. Tribes' permission was required before oil and gas companies could enter the land. The semi-nomadic reindeer herding people, Vyazhemtsi in the Komi Republic of Russia, just west of the Ural Mountains, had already rejected the Russian oil giant Lukoil takeover of the land for oil exploration and drilling. Samoyedic peoples include Northern Samoyedic peoples Nenes, Enits and Onesan. Southern Samoyedic peoples Selkup Karmasans are Karmas Meteoromotiko Yukaghir. The Yukaghir are people in East Siberia, living in the basin of the Kolyma River. The Tundra Yukaghirs live in the lower Kolyma region in the Sakha Republic, the Taiga Yukaghirs in the upper Kolyma region in the Sakha Republic and in Srednikansky district of Magadan Oblast. By the time of Russian colonization in the 17th century, the Yukaghir tribal groups occupied territories from the Lena River to the mouth of the Anadyr River. River. The number of the Yukaghirs decreased between the 17th and 19th centuries due to epidemics, internecine wars and Tsarist colonial policy. Some of the Yukaghirs have assimilated with the Yakuts, Evens, and Russians. Currently Yukaghir live in the Yakut-Sakha Republic and the Chachi Autonomous Region of the Russian Federation. According to the 2002 census, their total number was 1,509 people, up from 1,112 recorded in the 1989 census. Mongolic group. The Buryats number approximately 436,000, which makes them the largest ethnic minority group in Siberia. They are mainly concentrated in the homeland, the Buryat Republic, a federal subject of Russia. They are the northernmost major Mongol group. Buryats share many customs with the Mongolian cousins, including nomadic herding and erecting huts for shelter. Today, the majority of Buryats live in and around Ulan-Ude, the capital of the republic, although many live more traditionally in the countryside. The language is called Buryat. Turkic people. The most important examples for shamanism in Siberia are Yakuts, Dolgans and Tuvans. Most Siberian Tatars are Sunni Muslims. Tungusic group. The Evenks live in the Evenk Autonomous Okrug of Russia. Paleo-Siberian group. 4 small language families and isolates, not known to have any linguistic relationship to each other, compose the Paleo-Siberian languages. 1. The Chukotko-Kamchatkan family, sometimes known as Luravetlan, includes Chachi and its close relatives, Koyuk, Aluta and Kerik. Itelmen, also known as Kamchatal, is also distantly related. Chachi, Koyuk and Aluta are spoken in easternmost Siberia by communities numbering in the thousands. Kerik is close to extinction, and Itelmen is now spoken by fewer than 100 people, mostly elderly, on the west coast of the Kamchatka Peninsula. 2. Yukaghir is spoken in 2 mutually unintelligible varieties in the lower Kolyma and Indigo valleys. Other languages, including Chavansi, spoken further inland and further east, are now extinct. Yukaghir is held by some to be related to the Uralic languages. 3. Ket is the last survivor of a small language family on the Middle Yenisei and its tributaries. It has recently been claimed to be related to the Nardine languages of North America, though this hypothesis has met with mixed reviews among historical linguists. In the past, attempts have been made to relate it to Sino-Tibetan, North Caucasian, and Burushaski. 4. Nuk is spoken in the lower Amur Basin and on the northern half of Sakhalin Island. It has a recent modern literature, and the Nuks have experienced a turbulent history in the last century. Relationship to indigenous peoples of the Americas. Paleo-Indians from modern-day Siberia are thought to have crossed into the Americas across the Beringia land bridge between 40,000–13,000 years ago. A Georgetown University study has suggested that migration across the land bridge resulted in the similarity of the North American Nardine languages and Siberian Yeniseian languages, uniting as the Dendo-Yeniseian languages family. Analysis of genetic markers has also been used to link the 2 groups of indigenous peoples. Studies focused on looking at markers on the Y chromosome, which is always inherited by sons from the fathers. Haplogroup Q is a unique mutation shared among most indigenous peoples of the Americas. Studies have found that 93.8% of Siberia's Ket peoples and 66.4% of Siberia's Selkut peoples possess the mutation. The principal component analysis suggests a close genetic relatedness between some North American Amerindians and certain populations of central, southern Siberia, at the resolution of major Y chromosome haplogroups. This pattern agrees with the distribution of mtDNA. Haplogroup X, which is found in North America, is absent from eastern Siberia. Siberia, but is present in the Altais of southern central Siberia. The genetic evidence points to a strong connection between Amerindians being related to indigenous people of the Altai Mountains region of Siberia. Culture and customs. Citations